SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
For over 30 years, Hair & Gear Lexus has proudly served Mississippi with one simple mission. Do things right from the start. Discover the difference. Hair & Gear Lexus, where luxury meets integrity.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. You have made it to the midway point. It is Wednesday, April 9th, here at 6:07 a.m. Thanks for starting your day or ending your evening with us here on Mornings with Richard Cross. Lance, how are you doing, my friend?
Like I told you, I've already had a good start. I've seen all the darkness that you need for one day. I accidentally left my key in my ignition somehow or another in a way that the battery was still running. So luckily, I ran out to the car to put something up really late and noticed, oh, goodness, my battery's dead.
It's good that you found that out.
Yeah. And so I hopped in. I called a ride up to Walmart. Wasn't open, at 2 a.m. So I ran over to my dad's and got like a battery charger, came back, took care of business. But, by the time I was done, it was like 3:40. So I said, I'm up.
Yeah,
I'm up. I didn't even bother.
Point, it's not worth trying.
Yeah, I didn't even bother with coffee at that point. I'm already awake.
Well, your heart had probably been racing.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. So no, I'm getting my first cup of coffee in, feeling good. It's a Wednesday, so the hump, I've already gotten over it, I think. So
yeah,
it's downhill now.
I'm several cups behind on where I normally would be right now, so we'll be
problem?
caffeinating together.
What happened? What did you just not get up in time to get the usual caffeine intake?
I just didn't. I wasn't thinking about it right.
Mm-hmm.
I was too focused on reading about everything going on and the great show we got coming up, and so I neglected to get enough coffee in.
Well, that happens when your mind is tunnel vision focused.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that always is the fear, right? I'm bad and we've talked about it before. I'm bad. I know exactly when I have to leave to be in this chair when the mic is hot. And, it's a lot easier to prep sitting or maybe it's a lot more comfortable to prep sitting in your pajamas with a cup of coffee rather than doing it here in the studio. And so I know, if I'm not in that car at 5:48, we got a problem. But if I'm in the car at 5:48, no problem at all.
Yeah, if I'm waiting that late, I'm texting or calling Will. I'm like, Will, you're going to have to do something, man.
I've gotten a few of the morning calls where they go, "Hey, how everybody doing all right?" Yes, I promise.
They're so nice if they have to call you too.
Oh, I remember a remote when I was the first year I was doing this. We got a call. We were, I think we were down at the Coliseum, and Alex Payton, who does, as you know, just a tremendous job of making sure we've got great content on all the shows here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I think I was somewhere along the Waterworks curve, which for those of you who aren't in the metro area is 55 is Interstate 55 South in the middle of Jackson.
Genius engineering through there.
And she had texted me, and I had not seen it. And then I got a call where she said, "Hey, just want to make sure you'd seen the lineup for this morning." And she started going through it and said, "Alex, I'm awake and on my way. Do not worry. I will be there by 6:04 at the absolute latest." And you could hear her shoulders lowering a little bit because she wasn't worried about it.
Yes, he will be there. Oh, and back to Waterworks Curve. I hope your father or something wasn't the engineer of that.
No.
It was not the greatest design for 18-wheelers trying to do a figure S at about 60, 70 miles an hour. That's rough.
That is one. That is. I'd love to better understand how we ended up with that.
How that happened. Yeah.
Because I guess you would have had to have taken. For those of you who aren't familiar, there's a residential neighborhood that I actually grew up in just west of there.
Beautiful too.
It's a lovely neighborhood. But you would think they could have taken bought some of those houses over there and just had it be straight.
Maybe just built a bridge over, over the waterworks thing, because you have the Pearl River elbows right in there where the waterworks comes in, and then you have like a little, it's almost like a dam but it's not where it stops the water. It's a water break type dam, if you ever look at it on Google.
Yes.
It's right there. So you think, it's all like LaFleur's Bluff State Park, and there's a very narrow entry point into that. It's like a teardrop.
Totally.
But, yeah, it seems like you could have bridged it.
Well, and you go through there's this long straightaway before you get there. So, everybody should be going 60 miles an hour.
Oh, no.
Some of us occasionally, I'm sure neither you nor I, but some people occasionally are going more in the low 70s. And then all of a sudden you come to this curvy area where you really shouldn't be driving that fast, even separate and apart from what the law says. Just safety, you shouldn't be driving that fast, and you're constantly running into wrecks because people get there and go, oh my gosh, curve around and hit somebody.
You're doing way too fast to hit that, and it's a downhill sprint too as you're going into Jackson. So you're accelerating as you're accelerating.
Exactly.
It's almost like a berm.
Right.
So if you hit it too early, you start pushing that gas, and it's not the smoothest.
That's right.
It's not the smoothest interstate right in that little spot. But, that's always rough.
Well, the next time we have Brad White on, we'll need to get Brad to give us the history of the Waterworks curve and why it is the way it is. Why
is there not a statue of that individual somewhere right there in the curve? But thank you, Mr. Curve Man.
To your point about your battery this morning, that's always been my fear is you go out, and I know, like I said, 5:48, you can turn it on, you're here, plenty of time, get some coffee, et cetera, et cetera. But that's always been my worry is that you're going to go out and crank it and go, oh, I got car trouble.
I got lucky, honestly. Blessed is probably the better word, because I normally would have been walking out there at 4 whatever,
right,
getting ready to go, and I would have never had the time to take care of business. So, it was one of those lucky things. I would have missed you today.
You too.
That would have not been any fun.
Well, it would have been particularly bad for me because I don't know how we turn the radio machine on.
Just we turn this baby on and get it going.
Is there a crank in the booth or something?
There can be. That's way into the backup.
Okay.
You try to go with technology first, but if you have to go with the hand crank,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble, but you can probably pull it off. So.
Well, have you followed any of the coverage of the Masters Champions dinner last night?
I did not, honestly. Give me a lowdown.
So
on that.
everybody who hosts this has whatever their sort of biases are. So y'all can let us know on the C Spire text line 601-879-4395 your thoughts on any of this. But love golf, love the Masters. Scotty Scheffler is the reigning Masters champion, and so the tradition. And I know some of y'all are thinking, of course, and some of you are thinking, we don't care. And hopefully some of you are going, okay, let's see what's coming. But they host a dinner the Tuesday before the Masters where the reigning champion picks the menu, and they try to make it sort of a reflection of their character or their culture or whatever. And, like everything else, people have thoughts on social media. So Scotty had sliders, shrimp, meatball and ravioli bites. The ravioli, I think, is a reference to him having to drop out of a tournament at the last minute because he cut his hand while cooking ravioli, which is more involved ravioli preparation than I've ever been involved in.
Is there like a can opener involved in that?
I don't know if it was a can opener or they were getting really fancy.
He probably went to the fresh market or something and got the good ingredients and went from scratch. I'm more of the Chef Boyardee. He comes in handy in a pinch.
I've never made ravioli.
No, I've eaten a lot.
Oh, I'm a fan. I'm not mad at it. Yeah. But then he Texas-style chili to reference his Texas heritage, and then ribeye or redfish, and then a skillet cookie. But every year people come up with things that are sort of reflections of where they're from and their story. And
who all
all
gets
that.
invited to this? Is it every player?
So
or
it's just former champions.
Okay.
I don't know who from the Augusta National Golf Club comes. The chairman comes, and I think there are some other members there. But if you are a former champion, you're invited to come to this Tuesday night dinner, and it's
so generally these are not the people that are going to win it. Because it sounds to me like that's a good enough meal for like a week.
Oh yeah, it amazes, and I wonder with these professional athletes, do they really eat it? Like, if you or I went to that meal, I'm confident I would leave feeling great, quite full, maybe not feeling
I'd be like, yeah, man, I was at Scotty Scheffler's place.
Exactly.
You can imagine all the goods.
But with or Scotty Scheffler and Dustin Johnson, are they actually eating the entire ribeye and all the ravioli and stuff, or are they taking a few bites? That's a good question. But yes, it looks it's a neat little tradition.
Mini fridge in whatever places they stay. If you're
I'm sure
you got to take some leftovers with that, especially the Texas chili. I'd be like, yeah, give me a couple bowls of that. You got a Tupperware I can return later?
Yeah.
Type thing. I love chili.
But I think that's part of the reason they do it on a Tuesday, because it's the tournament doesn't start till Thursday. Today's a practice round, so people probably can enjoy themselves a little bit more.
Is this the day, or is it like yesterday? Isn't there a day that the normal people get to walk the course or do something before the actual tournament, or is
they'll have patrons there who can walk along it, but yesterday and today are practice rounds, and then today's the par 3 tournament.
Are those closed to the public usually?
No, you can get tickets. There is a lottery, and you go to the Masters website and sign up for it. But it's about like winning the lottery. The Gator Hunt's a good analogy.
Lottery,
you're probably going to lose. I look forward. It's one of my great Masters traditions is every June getting the email from Augusta National that says thank you for your application. Unfortunately, you were not one of the ones selected.
That's probably the only thing you've ever been turned down to, and it's probably you're probably endeared to it by now.
It's a custom I'm used to. Y'all stick with us for more. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. It is Tuesday, April 9th. Thank you all for being here with us. Got a great show coming up. We've got U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith in at 7 o'clock. She's with us for one segment. We've got the Speaker of the House, Jason White, with us at 7:20. And then William Russell, former advisor and state director for Mississippi for the Trump campaign, will be with us at 8 o'clock. And as always, you can be part of the conversation at the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Well, Lance, what tell us a little bit about April 8th. We got any birthdays? Any official designations here?
No terrible weather really to mention, other than got some river flooding out there and some beautiful day.
Oh yeah, do tell us about the weather.
Yeah, probably ahead of us here. 71 range, and I believe that'd be your kind of high spot today. That's South Haven. Thunderstorms tomorrow in North Mississippi and probably Central Mississippi. So get out and enjoy the day today a bit. There is a river, flood warning out there. So if you live close to the river, be careful with those flood conditions. Biloxi looking like it's going to be around 74 degrees today. No rain really to worry about tomorrow. So it looks like more of the central to the northern part of the state may be in the gun sides of that rain. Delta, it's cool this morning, as we know, and in Tupelo, it's around 38 degrees this morning. Yeah, so areas of frost before 8 and should warm on up to around 70 degrees today, but definitely going to probably see some chance of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, so kind of rounds out the weather for the day. I don't really see anything on the radar that looks, imposing. So
today's the day to get out.
Get out
if you hadn't
and enjoy
enjoyed
it. Yeah, well, and you get to cherish an antique. That's one of the things that is on the list today, as well as National Siblings Day. You get out in the yard and go to a junk sale or something and cherish an antique, and also National Unicorn Day.
National Unicorn Day.
I found a unicorn plaque. It's like a wooden. It's in my office back there. I found it. It's just this wooden plaque with this glaze on it. It has a unicorn emblazoned on this sci-fi grid.
Huh.
I found that. Well, I got it for free. Nobody wanted it, so I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So I'm taking it everywhere. It's really kind of, it almost looks like Tron. Like it'd be like, a unicorn that would have popped out of Tron or something. So that's today. But I wanted to tell you, you're going to miss a wonderful celebration tomorrow.
What is that?
Unless you go and take care of business, and that is, it's going to be National Croissant Day.
Oh, that's all the croissant talk this week.
So that's tomorrow. It's kind of funny how you look at these things sometimes and it pops up. You won't be here.
I won't, but maybe I'll eat a croissant.
But as far as birthdays, there's a pretty good number of them. Jay Baruchel, he is 43 years old today. Mark Pellegrino, 60. Cynthia Nixon, 59. Dennis Quaid, though, he's 71. Excellent actor. Kristen Stewart, 35. A few others out there. You had Carl Perkins, a musician, 1998 he passed, 93 years old. That's what he would have been today. And also TV personality, if that's what you want to call him, Joe Scarborough, 62 years old. Jim Fowler, the naturalist, he would have been 95. The Wild Kingdom, I'm sure you grew up on that. So, yeah, he was all over everything. And then Playboy founder Hugh Hefner, he would have been 99 years old. So,
wow.
Actually worked for the U.S. Army as a military writer, in the newspaper in the 40s. Later earned a degree in psychology and a double minor in art and creative writing in less than 3 years. Dude, pretty smart.
He certainly built a huge brand, that's for sure.
And then Paulina Poreskova, she was married to the Cars' Rick Ocasek there, for a bit. And they split in 2018, I believe, actually 2017. But it was not reported till a year later. So, but they remain buddies apparently. So that's how to do it if you're going to get a divorce after 40 years or something. You kind of want to be friends.
I have seen people do it both ways, and it's obviously it's better to stay married. But I've known
cheaper probably.
No doubt about that. But I've seen people who have the happy ones and the ones who have the unhappy ones. So.
Yeah.
You got to do it and figure out how to make it happy. That's clearly the way.
A lot of stuff did happen on this day. In 1768, John Hancock, he refused to allow 2 British customs agents to go below deck of his ship, and considered by some to actually be the first act of physical resistance to the British authority in the colonies.
There we go.
John Hancock, he was kind of a little bit of a hothead. And yes, he's an interesting one to read about a little bit. And you also had General Lee surrendered his army to Union General Ulysses S. Grant on this day in 1865 at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia.
And we already had one listener put a message up letting us know that this morning on the C-Spire text line.
A lot of stuff happened on this day. You had a civil rights bill President Andrew Johnson put out. It was vetoed. His veto was overridden, actually. And you had Samuel Percy. He patented dried milk. Thank you, sir. You had the 1959 announced the names of the first 7 astronauts, Gus Grissom and Scott Carpenter, Alan Shepard, Wally Schirra, John Glenn, Donald Slayton, and Gordo Cooper became known as the Mercury 7. You had the new Astrodome opened in 65, featured the first baseball game and exhibition between the Astros and the Pinstripers from New York. President Lyndon Johnson was actually in attendance of the opening Astrodome game there, and the Astros won that one 2-1 back when the uniforms were really cool.
They brought back the retro uniforms now and
those
again.
Those things are cool. I love those.
And let me interrupt you, Lance. I've several people have pointed out on the C-Spire text line, I got the date wrong. It is April 9th. So
today is?
Yeah.
I never know. I just show up. And
I know.
I leave that to the host.
But you got to rely on them.
I was like, hey, he's right, man. Yeah.
So if y'all are trying to do, if y'all had things to do on April 8th, I'm sorry, it's too late. Today is April 9th. And thank you for everybody who let us know.
And then you also had the Lion King became the highest grossing Broadway show after overtaking the Phantom of the Opera. And that's a pretty big deal, actually. You think about how long the Phantom of the Opera ran.
Is it no longer on Broadway?
I think it is, actually. If not, it's
probably
a
been
traveling
brought back
show.
or something.
Yeah, but thinking the Lion King beat that. And that Phantom of the Opera had been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
You also had the civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. He was actually buried on this day in 1968.
Wow.
And that's pretty much most of the stuff. Probably remember the Twitter footage of that guy. I think he was a Malaysian or something like that. 2017 was forcibly removed from the U.S. The United Airlines flight, actually.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Yeah, it was actually this day it happened. It caused national outrage.
I remember that. I'd love to know what the final settlement for that guy was.
Yeah, I read around a little bit, didn't see a whole lot.
I bet it was.
Said, "I'll take my money and be quiet."
I imagine there was something that said you can't say anything bad about us, and here's your 2 comma money.
But there is a BBC article out there if people are interested in seeing the video of that happened. Those many years, 2017. And it seems that since then there's been a lot of folks that seem to enjoy really throwing a fit on an airplane, which, It's not a great place to.
It is. It is not.
It doesn't seem the right time. Hey, there's a time and place for everything.
It's not on an airplane.
Not on an airplane.
Not
especially,
on an airplane.
You're upset because somebody sat next to you or something like that, and you paid for general admission, so to speak, and you throw a hissy fit.
That's right.
That's probably not the right place to do that, but.
Yeah, well, and plus people take their anger out. I mean, not that it'd be okay to take it out on the people whose actual responsibility it is, but, the poor flight attendant who is literally just trying to get you safely to the next place, he or she is not the one who bumped you off that previous flight. They are just trying to do their job and get you to the next place.
Well, and when you watch some of those videos, which comes across, they are funny because you can always sense the panic in the people working there, the stewardesses or whomever it may be, and how they're trying to defuse that obviously isn't working.
Right.
And the person's getting more upset. But sir or ma'am, and they keep it up. It's like continuously lighting the fuse over and over again, getting closer. It's like, I don't know if that's something I could put up with, though.
I can't imagine.
There's too many of the videos out there with somebody getting knocked out.
Oh, yeah.
I'd probably be the one going, all right, I'm had enough of this, and just, knock them out, and then you pay the price. You don't want to have to do that, but you see so many of them, like the Steve Inman clips, which are hilarious. He's a UFC announcer. And you find all those clips from all over where somebody messed around and found out, And,
well, that's the thing about it. If you don't, at the end of the day, if you don't listen to what they tell you to do,
that's what
there is going to be law enforcement for you when that plane lands, or worse, there's going to be law enforcement. I mean, they're going to bring the plane down and come bring law enforcement for you.
I just wish they used the taser more. That's the funniest. I mean, when you see somebody get tased and then they just melt to the ground and go. If the airplane would have to be the right place for that, because you can't really have guns and even rubber bullets and stuff. But the taser, that seems to be like the perfect spot.
Yeah, that
these
probably
folks
is the
really
sweet
need
spot.
to be tased more. I can assure you, watching some of those videos.
There are some just fantastic. I mean, fantastic's not entertaining, captivating, and sort of watching a car wreck sort of way videos of those things.
They are.
We all stick with us. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Feeling deep inside, find a corner where I can hide. Silent footsteps crowding me, sudden darkness, but I can see. No sugar tonight in my coffee, no sugar tonight in my tea, no sugar to stand beside me, no sugar to run with me.
Track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
She traveled all around, all across this country. Met a lot of people, made a lot of friends. She got the feeling of a small plane running through her blood. She going back home, but she don't know when.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Wednesday, April the 9th, not April the 8th. And happy birthday to John from Hurley's wife, which is how he knew that today was not, in fact.
There you go. He's on top of things.
So, but yesterday was her birthday when it was the 8th. So, okay. Lance, you got any sporting news for us?
Well, there is some great sports going on out there, but I don't know if you'd heard about Cory Booker. He's been
the filibuster.
Well, that and not just that, but some of the memes that have come out have been really funny. Calling him dollar store Obama, Timu Obama. I don't think he likes it very much.
I can't imagine.
But Twitter's kind of all over the place with some of that. But there's some sports news to cover.
Before we get on the sports, on the Cory Booker thing, the thing about that was crazy to me, I still can't figure out what he was filibustering, what the point was. I mean, it feels like a stunt for stunt's sake.
I think that's pretty much what the left is engaging in at the moment.
Yeah, so look at him resisting. He spoke for 25 hours without having to go to the bathroom. I mean, that's a physical feat.
I guess.
Why no one can tell me why I should care.
No. Hey, good for him. I guess if you can talk that long and stand there that long and hold it that long, good for you.
Yeah, but if this had been
I still don't know what came of it. As far as anything substantial or significant.
Right. Had this been, the left, and I know some of you are going, it's 6:30, it's a little strong, but just
funny.
We're going to get a little strong on it. Because to me, it encapsulates so much of the modern left, and we were talking about it yesterday. It's this. It's just sort of this make-believe world that we're in Star Wars, and Donald Trump he's Chancellor Palpatine, and he's about to end the Republic and turn us into the Galactic Empire. And look at Cory Booker; he spoke for 25 hours, doing nothing.
Well, it's kind of like the Smurfs to me, and then Gargamel shows up, and everybody's upset, and he's the great wizard and evil, and everybody, over here has to have their own little identity and every little thing and every little name, and but then you got the great wizard that everybody's so scared of, and for what reason I'm not quite sure yet. But it's easy to demonize something, I guess, if you want to make a point and you want to separate yourself from that side of the world, and it seems that's what we're getting more and more of, is further and further away from some understanding of where are you going with this.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I'm like, what's the goal? I get lost a little with that.
Well, and if at the end of the filibuster people went, well, because of this filibuster, the bill that the evil Donald Trump was pushing that would have ended voting in America and turned us into a dictatorship, it was finally defeated, I'd go right on Cory Booker. Thank you for doing that for the Republic. But it feels more like, I ate the old 86er or whatever it is. Like, look at this big, uncomfortable thing I did. Mm-hmm. It's just like the guys you see, I forget the term they use. Somebody will, I'm sure, send it in the C-Spire text line. But the folks who, it's mostly young men who take these long plane flights and they brag about the fact that they didn't watch any movies or have anything to drink or eat any of the food. And you kind of go, what? Why?
Did you bring sandwiches?
Like, okay, you stuck a fork in your eye. That sounds unpleasant, but congrats. Anyhow, go.
No, I'm with you, man. I get lost in the I guess the masquerade of it all, and it just seems like that's where we're at. It's just some kind of wild party that you don't really know the players, but they're all famous.
Right.
You don't really know why you're having a party, but there's one going on, and it doesn't seem to have an end to it. It just keeps going.
Well, we've cut into your sporting news. So
there's not a ton.
We'll give you some more in the 8 o'clock hour, everybody. That's one more reason that you should keep the dial locked wherever it is right now for the next 2.5 hours.
Well, NFL, there's some speculation out there as who's going to be the number one pick and all that good old stuff when we get down to the draft and all the jockeying. And Mel Kiper seems to be your number one kind of go-to. There's others out there, but he seems to get more right than wrong. I don't put a lot of stock into the numbers as far as who's going what sometimes, because there seems to be a lot of shuffling and trading going on. But there's a very heavy dominance out there with Texas and Alabama players that are projected in the first round. Shedeur Sanders, as many would probably want to know, they got him projected since the local team here. Mel's got him projected to the Saints if the Giants do not pick him up, which the Giants have an earlier pick in there, number 3. They're saying that he's saying Abdul Carter, from outside linebacker from Penn State, may be the Giants' pick, but if not, maybe Shedeur Sanders would be. So looks like Shedeur could land there. Been a lot of drama through the week with Deion being at the pro day or at the draft day,
giving some feedback.
Giving feedback as he does best. So there's one guy in here though. I was scrolling through it earlier, and I had not heard of his name before. But you would think with a name like this that you would have heard it proclaimed from somewhere, but he's Cincinnati Bengals projected Alabama pick for linebacker Jihad Campbell. Yeah, I'd never heard of Jihad Campbell before, but apparently he's a great player, and I just liked the name. I was like, man, okay, he's ready to go. He's gonna throw a fit out there. So.
Is that spelled Jihad like
very similar? Yeah, pretty close. They got an extra A in there.
Okay,
I think,
okay.
But yeah, so that's happening. We had that baseball. We're a couple weeks into this baby, and it's starting to shape up a little bit. I'm not going to go through all the scores and all the games, but the Blue Jays and the Yankees, they seem to be kind of the clubs to go with in the East of the American League right now. But you can't really push around Boston or Baltimore yet. They're right there, and 7-5 all the way down to 5-7. So we're early, but it doesn't look like you have really a terrible team in that East, so that's always good because that's a hotly contested one. Central Division, the Tigers The Kansas City Royals are the ones above 500 right now, but the Guardians are right there behind them. And the Twins and the White Sox are kind of struggling. So, you as you get into that first month, that separation, you got to win some games. You got to win a few here. So
we're what, like 3 weeks into the season?
About almost 3 in.
Okay.
If you're talking about everyday games, so probably 2 more than anything. But so the White Sox and the Twins are they're a little rough looking start here in the Central. In the West, though, of the American League, Los Angeles, the Angels are at 7-3, Rangers 8-4. And then the Astros, Athletics, and Mariners are right there together, about a game or so under 500, with the Mariners pulling up the rear. So, again, got a few teams that are starting to separate there in the American League West. National League, though, New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies are really looking pretty strong out of the gate, with the Marlins not far behind them, and the Nationals. The Braves are 2-8, though. They did get their second win yesterday. Hopefully they'll get a few more of those strung together. The Cubs in the Central, the Brewers, and the Cardinals are all right there together, and the Reds, actually. So Pittsburgh Pirates, this division is always a crazy one. Pittsburgh's at 4-8. They got some great young talent. You saw Paul Skeens last year, and then I'm not sure how long Connor Griffin's going to be in the minor leagues after the spring training he had, the kid from Prep that was their first-round pick. Mm-hmm. But he had an amazing spring training, so he may be getting called up at some point, or see him accelerate through the minors this year. But that's where we stand there in the West, and we'll round it out there with the Padres and the Giants are looking pretty strong, with the Dodgers also in there, have already won 9 games. The Diamondbacks and the Rockies, though, Diamondbacks are at 500. The Rockies look to be the team that are going to get left behind there. So that gets us caught up with Major League Baseball. And also had a few ball games that happened last night. Ole Miss victorious 10-0 over Memphis, an easy win before they host Tennessee this weekend. Mississippi State had an 8-3 victory over UAB. Southern Miss played Alabama last night. We said that was a big game. 10-6 was the outcome of that one. Kind of a little bit. Southern Miss jumped out to a 4-0 lead. Alabama scored a couple in the fourth, and then scored 6 in the sixth, and that really was kind of the difference maker, as Southern Miss narrowed it a little bit there toward the end in the eighth, but still a 4-run win by Alabama. Alabama 28-6. The Eagles that are golden 22-11, and everybody's back on the conference action this weekend, as we know. Southern Miss will have Texas State, who is a very good team. They beat a lot of solid programs. They'll have to travel to San Marcos, Texas. Sounds exotic. I'm sure they're going down there to play baseball, though, and not eat empanadas. And
that's right.
But that's where we are there with Southern Miss. Ole Miss, as I said, has Tennessee this weekend. That'll be a great test for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has played a little bit above their head in what was expected of them so far. But, they'll have Alcorn State to kind of warm up with tonight. Alcorn struggling a bit in the SWAC, but Ole Miss will have them at 4 p.m. if you're in the area and want to go to the game. But they'll welcome number 5, Tennessee, and that's going to be a big weekend coming in for the Rebs. And then finally, Mississippi State, like I said, they had that big UAB win. Feels good to have a good weekend and get that midweek W. Doesn't get easier, though. They go over to Alabama, Tuscaloosa. Alabama, good team, been playing very well in the first part of the season, getting to midway point in the Southeastern Conference. So this was kind of that crucible. Once you get there, you want to, you really want to be as close to 500 as you can as you get to that 500, the halfway point. So Mississippi State could go a long way to helping their cause, going over and have a 2 out of 3 type weekend against Alabama. Totally capable
that
of
won't
doing
be
that,
easy.
But it ain't going to be easy.
Yeah.
Alabama's a solid squad. And that's about what I have for you for the sports right now.
There we go. Well, that's a good sports update.
Thank you, sir.
Y'all, y'all stick with us. We're going to have a lottery update coming up next. It's been a little sports update. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Lotto America had no jackpot winner last night. The estimated jackpot for tonight, Wednesday, April 9th, is $28.82 million. The estimated cash value is $13.9 million. The numbers from Monday, April 7th, were 4, 8, 13, 27, and 37. The Star Ball was 7, and the All-Star bonus multiplier was 4.
Powerball, no jackpot winner. The estimated jackpot for tonight, Wednesday, April the 9th, $65 million. Estimated cash value on that, $31.4 million. Numbers from Monday, 20, 23, 48, 59, 66. Powerball of 4. Power play multiplier of 2.
Double play numbers from Monday, April 7th were 2, 31, 36, 51, 58 with a Powerball number of 15.
Well, Mega Millions, no jackpot winner yet. Estimated jackpot for Friday, the 11th, is $72 million. Estimated cash value on that is $34.3 million. The drawing on Tuesday, those numbers 10, 16, 50, 60, and 61 with a Mega Ball of 17.
Mississippi Match 5 had no jackpot winner, but the estimated jackpot for tonight is $101,000. The numbers from Tuesday night's drawing were 6, 18, 30, 32, and 35.
Your Tuesday cash $3 $500 midday numbers 160. The evening 174. Cash for $5,000 midday numbers 8390. The evening drawing 0821. The Fireball was won both in the midday and the evening. You had a cash pop of 14 in the midday and a cash pop of 9 in the evening.
Well, more than $1 million are up for grabs in today's second chance promotional drawing. The Mississippi Lottery Corporation will hold another highly anticipated second chance promotional drawing later today, giving players another opportunity to win big prizes from 10 retiring scratch-off games. In total, more than $1 million in prizes will be awarded through this drawing. The promotion allows players to enter eligible non-winning tickets from select scratch-off games for a chance at top prizes ranging from $20,000 to $200,000. The games included in that drawing are Power 10X, Bingo, 77777, $100,000 jackpot, Double Diamonds, Jumbo Bucks, Blackout Bingo, Silver Sevens, 20X Cash Blitz, and 50X Cash Blitz. To check results or learn more, players can visit the Mississippi Lottery's website at mslottery.com or check the lottery's social media channels later today. Winners of today's drawing will be notified by certified mail from the Mississippi Lottery Corporation.
Well, we had a slew of winners on Cash 4 today. A Chula woman, $843. A Jackson man won $843. A Columbus woman, kind of $2 up them on that, got $845. A Kosciuszko woman won $1,200 on a ticket from the Minute, Martin Kosciuszko. Canton man, $1,350 on a ticket purchased in Canton at the Discount Drugs. Clinton woman, $1,690 on 2 tickets from Tobacco Store in Byram. A Kenner, Louisiana man, $2,500 in winnings on a ticket from the Fuel Time 2 in Jackson. Ridgeland man, $2,500 richer on a ticket from Sprint Mart in Ridgeland. A Shuckalak woman, $2,500. A Bay Springs man, $2,700. A Harrisville player won $3,100 on a ticket from Pinola Grocery in Pinola. And a Waynesboro woman, $3,303 on a ticket from Midway Service Center in Shibuya. And then finally, the biggest one in this mix here, a Jackson woman won $8,100 on 2 tickets from the Walmart Superstore, number 2720 in Madison.
Take a deep breath. I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah, you can have the rest.
You made it all the way through that. I'm impressed.
I did stumble once. But
shoot. There's so many people winning on Cash 4. A Madison woman won $1,000 on a Cash Pop ticket from Stop and Shop in Jackson. An Oxford woman won $1,000 on a ticket from Walmart Superstore, number 699 in Oxford. A Liberty woman won $1,250 on a ticket from Act Main Street in Liberty. A Petal woman won $2,500 on a Cash Pop ticket from Petal Valero Food Mart in Petal. A Pearl, I'll give you one more break. A Pearl man,
you got it, man.
A Pearl man won $1,000 on a Match 5 ticket from Circle K store number 272-3748 in Pearl, and a Long Beach man won $2,000 on 3 tickets from the Winn-Dixie number 1479 in Long Beach.
Let's see if I can get this one out. The $3 15-time crossword winners. A Vaden woman won $1,500 on a ticket from Parker's Filling Station number 503 in Vaden, and then a Baldwin man won $1,500 on a ticket from the Moorville Pizza in Moorville.
A Corinth woman won $1,000 on a $20 200 times cash blitz winner ticket from T-Mart number 9 in Corinth. And a Saltillo man won $1,000 on a $20 My Lottery Dream Home ticket from One Stop Market in Guntown. Those are some happy winners. Remember, you can't win if you don't play, but play responsibly. That's been your Mississippi Lottery Update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Y'all, first hour's in the books. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We'll have more coming up. The U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, Speaker of the House Jason White, both in our 7 o'clock hour. But coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Joining our 7 o'clock hour here, and I'll tell you, this hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Well, with us on the line is U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. How are you doing this morning, Senator?
We are good. We are trying to stay warm here in D.C. We definitely had a cold snap, but all is well.
It's nice to get that last little cold snap before everything gets blazing hot, isn't it?
Exactly. In fact, my chief, Doug Davis, said, "You guys may be cold, but I'm enjoying every minute of this right now." He said, "Because we're going to wish we could save it." So, yeah, we're just putting on those overcoats and thinking, it is nice because being from Mississippi, we certainly know what's about to hit us.
We've got a little bit of a cold snap in the state as well, so it's I will try to remember this for 2 weeks from now when I'm sweating so badly.
Yep, that's it.
Well, how are things in D.C.? It seems like interesting times up there.
Lucien, it is hard to even describe. I mean, it's such a moment in time. And I truly mean that. I've been at this a long time. You and I've been at this a long time. And to see what is happening now and where we are coming from in the last 4 years and the direction that we're headed. But, oh, my goodness, the hard work it has to take to get there. So we're putting in a lot of hours. I was at the White House yesterday, and it really seems strange because, I hadn't been there in 4 years. And, it's a weekly thing now, but, we brought in the coal miners yesterday to, the goal is to unleash American energy, and President Trump signed 4 executive orders yesterday to boost coal mining, and we had all the coal miners there with their hats on, their work hats that had the lights on them, and then the reflectors on their jeans and their shirts, and just such proud coal miners that came in to the White House that were recognized and, to boost the coal mining. So it's just every day is something like that happening. And I definitely don't see where the president gets his energy.
I was just thinking that, especially compared to his predecessor.
Exactly. It is so night and day. It's really enjoyable to talk to the White House staffers on that sort of thing. But, we're just going in the right direction. Everybody is so concerned about these tariffs. I'm concerned about these tariffs. I am getting calls from people, oh, look what my 401 is doing.
Right.
And, I just let them know that, we're in a tough time right now, and I understand what you're going through. But again, I compare it to cleaning out that closet. You got a mess before it gets better, and we're in the mess.
Yeah, but I think that's a good analogy.
It really is.
What do you hear? I mean, you're obviously both between your background and your family business, particularly connected to our agricultural community. I mean, what are you hearing from farmers and ranchers about the tariffs?
Well, I talked to a guy yesterday. Now, he is in Billings, Montana, but he said, I just want you to know, please tell the president that we're behind him 100%, that we knew we were going to have to go through a tough time. But, Lucien, the president, he just wants fair trade.
Right.
And there are so many unbelievable circumstances of how we have been taken advantage of for so long. And, it's hard dealing. But in the end, I promise you, I firmly believe this, we're going to be better off because of this. And you're going to see the economy soar. You're going to see that people are confident in investing. But, with the ag background, with, my ranchers and farmers out there, I understand that the outlook for the 2025 crop, it's already been grim, even before the tariffs were announced. And but I support President Trump's effort. I really do, because he wants to create that level playing field for producers, and through increased market access for U.S. exports. And by having the guts, the gumption to address these unfair trade barriers and producing fair trade deals, oh my gosh, the benefits are truly, it's truly outstanding what the benefits can be. Yesterday, Brooke Rollins, our ag secretary, she made the comments that, by the end of the week, we could really start to get good fair trade deals. By the end of the week,
that's
this
something.
Is yesterday. So when you've got 70 countries out of 195 coming and saying, we want to make sure that we are at the table, we want to negotiate. And I say all the time, tariffs to President Trump simply means we need to talk. That's what that means to him. And he can get people to the table so fast. And it should have happened for such a long time ago that, we just kind of got used to the unfairness, and we really quit doing a lot of research on exactly what was going on. And, now that we have a president that says, I am going to stand up to these farmers and ranchers, and I am going to do what it takes to make sure they're not taken advantage of, and things that we have just accepted because we've had it for so long. The potential, Lucien, is really, really positive, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
Well, good. I hope that's where we end up. I think that's the president's goal as well, and you're certainly closer there than I am, very, very significantly. Let me ask you this: so we're in 2025. 2026 is an election year. Am I correct? You're running for re-election. Is that announced yet?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It's like there's so many people that love to start rumors, and they love to start conversations that may cause questions or pause. Absolutely. And are you kidding me? I mean, I am having so much fun.
That's great.
With President Trump back in the White House, and it's so exciting of the things that we can accomplish. And, you bet. We've got, of course, exactly how this works. We've got 33 senators up, 20 Republicans, and, you're going to see a lot of campaigning. Louisiana, Cassidy is up, and over in Alabama, Tuberville's up, Bill Hagerty's up in Tennessee, and Tom Cotton in Arkansas. So, and Georgia, which is going to be a really good race to watch with Ossoff, he is actually up. So we've got 20 Republicans and 13 Democrats. And we actually have the opportunity, if we work hard enough and if the things play out the way we think they are with the economy that's going to be positive, we really have an advantage here of possibly picking up more Republican seats. And, that's a conversation in the cloakroom that's constant. What are we doing with the tariffs, with the uncertainty of things and people just hanging on? What are we doing to the midterm elections? But I really think that it's positive. Of course, the president has endorsed me.
I was going to say, he came out big for you.
Oh, yeah. And he told me early on that, he said, don't you worry about a thing. With my endorsement, he says, Cindy, I'm with you 1,000%. So, that's really nice to have. And for some reason, the senators that haven't been endorsed yet, they're coming to me saying, can you talk to your friend? Thinking, we've got one race to run in Mississippi. And that is certainly, a big plus for me that I have the advantage of that. And, it's the biggest endorsement you can get in Mississippi as far as I'm concerned. But it's still so bizarre, maybe is the word, that he and I have the relationship that we have.
Well, I was going to say, you've done a tremendous job in building that relationship, and I know firsthand. I remember back when I was chairman and you were running, how big of a fan President Trump is of Cindy Hyde-Smith.
Yeah, he came to Mississippi and did 3 rallies for me, and every time he speaks and he sees me in the audience, he'll say, "Oh yeah, I had to do 3 for her because she asked." But I just
not everybody gets 3.
No, I want Mississippi to just benefit from that, and I'm just here to work as hard as I can possibly work on every subject matter that comes up. That having the president and knowing that I can shoot him a text, it's truly unbelievable that we've got that support. But, I've got a great position on appropriations. I'm the subcommittee chairman of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. We're just in a good position, but we better have enough sense to take advantage of it, to capitalize on it, and to do everything we can possibly do to move Mississippi forward, because this is definitely about Mississippi.
Amen. Well, Senator Hyde-Smith, thank you for taking the time to be with us, and thank you for all you do for us in Washington.
Well, great to be with you. Look forward to it again. Stay warm.
Stick with us. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable...
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be...
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. As we continue the jam-packed 7 o'clock hour, here with us in studio is Speaker of the House, Jason White. How you doing, Mr. Speaker?
I'm good, Lucien. Good to be with you this morning.
Yeah, we try to keep everybody on their toes by having that microphone just a little bit broken. I was here with Gerard. Exact same thing happened. He's talking, and I'm going, did I pull this son of a gun out? Is it unplugged now? So,
it would fit right in under the current circumstances.
We want to get under your skin just enough.
That's right. It keeps the energy
rattled.
Not under my skin. Just keep you on your toes, as you say.
Exactly. You don't want anybody to ever get too comfortable. So. Well, congrats on being on the other side of Sine Die. I know it's always y'all spend a lot of time down here, do a lot of work, and it's probably good to get back to your paying job.
It is. I have a law office that's on fire, so we were able to put out a few fires last week and over the weekend, that sort of thing. So we'll figure it out going forward.
Yeah.
We've got a little business left to do at the cap, so we'll figure that out between now and the end of June. And
so talk on that subject. Talk to us a little. I mean, the major. I know there are general bills that people are interested in that didn't happen this year, but the main thing that has to happen is coming up with final appropriations.
Yeah, and so that us signing down and leaving and finishing the 2025 regular session, that was different for us, and I would say not good, simply because I think we had some really great things happen legislative-wise during the session, but then to sign it down without a budget, it was kind of, you were left a little, I don't know, this feeling is different. So that was hanging over. So we'll figure that out. Like, what does that look like going forward? We're not that far apart with the Senate necessarily on the numbers on the budget. We agreed, Joint Legislative Budget Committee meets all summer and fall. That's made up of House and Senate members in leadership and the appropriators for sure on those committees. And so the budget where we are currently of those 100 and some odd budgets, we're not that far apart necessarily on general fund spending. There seems to be a major disagreement on 2 or 3 budgets, and in addition to that, whether or not we're going to spend any of our cash, any of our capital expense money on projects, if you will, on infrastructure, if you will. So we had a real issue with the process of budgeting, and we had communicated that clearly to the Senate early on, actually last year, but at the end of session last year, we communicated clearly that going forward we would do it in a much more orderly process and transparent, not in the middle of the night. So contrary to what you might hear from the other end of the building, nobody was surprised when we came to Friday, approaching what was traditionally the conference weekend, and we didn't have a budget, and we're a long ways from one, and folks started talking about filing dummy bills. And that's, the wheels totally came off. But I will say this. Even if we could agree on the few budgets that we differ on, there's a major sticking point and difference regarding capital expense and what's going to be spent on local government infrastructure. So we got to get that part worked out. For folks who don't know,
explain a little bit what the capital expense fund is and how it's funded, if you can.
Because of the surpluses that we've run the last several years, we've banked a lot of money, and so for the last 5-6 years, we have spent anywhere from 50 to 150, $200 million on what I would call, some people call them CapEx projects, or local government things for cities and counties, like a road, a bridge, maybe in a municipality, or maybe a county road. That's an inordinate expense. Maybe it's a $5 or $10 million bridge that a local government can otherwise find the funds, or maybe they've got part of the money and they need help from the state, those kind of things. Maybe it's a fire station. Maybe it's a fire truck in a particular, rural area or in a city that's having trouble. Fire trucks cost $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 now, and some cities just can't make the math work on that. So you hear people talking about that. We've done that for several years. All of a sudden this year, we got to the end of session, and coming out of the Senate leadership was there's not going to be funds for local projects this year. And we've got $2.5 billion in the bank. Now, certainly, we want to be, like we always are, we want to be very cautious and conservative about how we spend our money. But that looked more like cities and counties were very supportive of House Bill 1. They actually wrote letters of endorsement, put them out all over the state. We advertised them. We were proud to receive those endorsements from both the County Supervisors Association as well as the Mississippi Municipal League, which represents all the cities. And so it just looked like maybe all of a sudden from Lieutenant Governor and Senate leadership, they don't want to fund local projects, and it looked to be a little bit of spillover from House Bill 1. And we're going to protect our friends, those that help push something across the finish line. We're not just going to throw them out here to score political points.
Now, I imagine what they would say, and I hadn't discussed this, so maybe this is unfair, but I would imagine what they would say is, because these tax cuts are coming, we've got to be careful about stockpiling cash so that if there is a shortfall, we haven't already spent it.
I don't know. I'll let them articulate their reasons. I won't begin to guess what Senate leadership is thinking.
Fair enough.
On most of that stuff.
It does, but
we
so
are
this
flush.
Is the real sticking point, though, right? Is capital expense spending for the most
It's going to be a sticking point because for some reason they identified a few projects that maybe were in some of their districts that they thought rose to a level of state importance that should be funded, but others, and by and large most others, should not be. So we're not going to go for that. We'll either spend money statewide or we won't spend any CapEx money. And we'll be fine with a level funded budget and no CapEx spend, and we'll move forward.
Because that does seem to be the big, I remember other times where the legislature has left without a budget. 2013, I think, was the last time where that happened. but you generally could articulate very clearly, here's the fight is about spending for this agency or these agencies, and this is the amount. That's what was striking about this, is it didn't feel like you could say, oh, well, they can't agree on Medicaid spending, or they can't agree on, what DPS, whether there's going to be a trooper school this year. I mean,
right. We're in a different era because of the surpluses. So now we've had the easy thing when agencies show up and want extra money for whatever. And I'm not saying those things that they advocate for aren't necessary or important. I'm just saying it's real easy, and you have to be careful when you have all this money sitting in the bank and somebody just wants another $20 million or another $5 million or this project, $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
The easy thing, instead of saying no or saying no, is that really a core function of government? The easy thing is just to fund it and avoid the friction and move on. And so what we've been able to do over the last several years is not do that. Now, we spent plenty of money, but keep in mind we're running $700, $800, $900 million surpluses. So even spending money, you're able to bank a considerable amount. And so we've got over $2 billion in the bank. That's not counting a rainy day fund. So there's real money sitting there. There is no crisis in state government. Now, there is some difference on how much additional money we fund at Medicaid because of potential cuts that we see coming from the federal level. There's no denying that. We enjoy an enhanced match. So that's a real issue. Now, we hadn't gotten there yet. And, I hear a lot of talk about, well, these cuts that are coming to the Department of Education, that they've already received their letter, and Department of Health. We'll deal with those. Mississippians voted for President Trump just like our country did. And he was very transparent on the front end about what he was going to do.
Right.
And we're going to do our part there. The sky's not falling there. It appears that most of those funds were to be spent on things pandemic related. Well, we're past the pandemic. That stuff's over with. It's time for us to assess core functions of government wherever they are, including at the Department of Education. So we'll deal with those. We don't think the sky's falling. We think it's probably what was to be expected from a Trump administration, and we're proud to embrace it and try to figure out a way forward.
I remember from when I used to put budgets together for Governor Barber that it's almost easier, not in terms of the substantive piece of this, but in terms of making the numbers work. It's almost easier when money's tight because you can say no. But when you're sitting on billions, everybody wants just – if we could just get this $1 million, right, we can do all this great stuff.
Your memory serves you well, Lucien, because that is exactly – my first few years in the legislature, we were cutting budgets, trying to make a budget, and we went from a place like that to a place of these tremendous surpluses. So it is a different deal, and it's much more complicated when all that money's laying around and politicians get itchy trigger fingers.
Well, and everybody's got a project that's, in the grand scheme of things, inexpensive, but, $1 million here, $1 million there, and pretty soon you're out of money. You got time for a second segment?
Absolutely.
I know you got a tight timeline this morning.
Yeah, we're good.
Y'all stick with us. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross. We'll have more with Speaker Jason White coming up next.
Segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I don't know where I'm gonna go in a volcano, but I don't want to land in the New York City. I don't want to land in Mexico. I don't want to land.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. We've got with us Speaker of the House, Jason White. If you've got questions or comments, send us a text to the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. Speaker, so procedurally, the fiscal year for the state ends at the end of June. So y'all have to work this out before July 1st, or I'm assuming there's a state government shutdown?
No, we're not going to have a state government shutdown.
Okay.
A few times that budgets have not been passed before July 1st, the governor is able, through some emergency powers, to run it for even a little while longer.
Okay.
To smooth out a landing if there's one needed to be. But I don't foresee that at all. We're not in any danger of that. My House members, again, weren't. We wish we would have passed the budget in regular session. We wanted to pass a budget, but we were going to do it in an orderly and transparent way. And I guess the Senate thought we were kidding when we told them that. Now they know we're not kidding, and I don't know why they thought that. Everything we've told them, we've been pretty clear about where we were on issues that, it almost led to no education budget last year when we told them we funded MAP for the last time, and they ran it right up to sine die, and eventually after killing that bill 3 times, all of a sudden they saw the light, and now we have an Inspire funding formula, and MAP is no longer with us. But we told them that, but it took sticking to that. So this is a very similar issue. So my House members were not surprised and were very comfortable not passing budgets in the middle of the night, and we'll do it in an orderly and transparent way between now and the end of June. We're not that far apart on the budget. I've told you there are a few key budgets like Medicaid we have to deal with, maybe even at Child Protective Services, figuring out they need a little more money there and trying to figure out exactly what that is. There are a few agencies that need deficit funding between now and the end of the year just to get out of this current budget year. So there's some important things that we need to do in a timely fashion. Other than that, we'll figure something out on whether or not the Senate is willing to come on board with the House in funding these local city and county projects with mayors and boards of supervisors. If they don't, we can't make them. We'll have a budget. We just won't have any CapEx spend. But we're not going to punish our local governments just because somebody's upset that we passed House Bill 1. I don't want this interview with you today to be all about gloom and doom. We're going to get there on the budget. I'm confident about that.
Are the two sides talking?
Yeah, we're talking. We're talking. I think our appropriators will probably start meeting next week. To get some semblance of an agreement. We're not going to be down there in session and start from scratch. So the governor is going to require us to have an agreement hammered out before we get there, so that we're only there a day or two to deal with that.
So that was going to be one of my questions. You do think that's the way it's going to work? Y'all come to an agreement, yes, and he brings you back?
Yeah. I don't think he would. He's been pretty clear from his first day as governor that he would be very judicious about calling a special session. And, my phone's ringing off the hook every day from folks saying, hey, could you get the governor to add this to the call, or get the governor to add this to the call? The
C-Spire text line is lighting up with people who've got ideas for general bills that should be there.
Well, I have 40 things I wish we could add to it, but...
You think it'll be a clean call? I
think it'll be a clean call unless we could have an agreement on a couple of issues that were big issues in the session, and we'll see. We'll see where we get. We were... with all of the success of House Bill 1, we were able to eliminate the personal income tax over a 14-year period. That is conservative, and that is in a way that is doable. We cut the grocery tax from 7 to 5. We found a dedicated stream. We adjusted that 1987 gas tax funding formula for roads and bridges and maintenance and got it to a place where over a 3-year phase-in period, we'll actually be able to begin to kind of run MDOT more the way other states do it, while our gas tax will still be lower than any southern state, and all of our sister states will still be 10 to 15 cents lower. So we're more than competitive in the gas price as it relates to the amount of tax there. And it'll be on an index going forward, so hopefully we won't be back in this situation where we're scrambling around looking under couch cushions for money to fund roads and bridges at MDOT.
So it'll automatically increase over time?
Yes, it's limited. It can never go up more than 1%, 1 cent every other year. So it's got a cap on it, and which, again, is a good conservative feature that we're proud of. Now, To get those things, we did have to take the lieutenant governor's 5th tier created for PERS. So as we approach this special session, the other thing for us that we are really hung up on is a dedicated stream of funding to address that deficit at PERS. The 5th tier may be part of the equation, but if you don't put some extra money going to that deficit, we already know all kind of smart folks on both sides of the aisle have said, if you don't figure out some additional stream of revenue for them, the long-term stability and viability of it doesn't look good. And so the House has been clear. House Bill 1 originally had $100 million annually going from lottery revenue directly to the PERS deficit. So we're going to continue to fight for that even through this special session and try to get somewhere on that. And we hope our Senate colleagues will come along and realize that is a super important issue, and folks are watching that really close. So we'll continue to push for that as it was originally in House Bill 1. Now, having said all that about the budget, it was an incredibly successful session looking at where we were able to move our state to a no personal income tax state. I equate that to so many other pieces we've been able to knock off the board or off the table over the last few years that have opened Mississippi wide open on a national stage. And I'm telling you, when we go places now to other states, to a legislative conference, people actually want to come to the Mississippi booth and say, hey, what's going on there now? You know, it's
you have got national recognition.
It's cool to be from Mississippi, and our legislators are on panels discussing what we're doing instead of sitting there listening to what's cool happening in Tennessee or Texas or Florida or whatever. They actually want to hear from us, and so that's been neat. Now the phones have been blowing up about our personal income tax. Hey, how did y'all do that? I would just say for us, it started way last summer. We had meetings, select committees. We had a summit, brought in people from all over the country and built that moment. Nobody was surprised in January when we came out with that bill. We almost telegraphed what we were going to do.
Right.
Now, with that, we were also able to do some other things. We were able to finally pass a DEI ban that took a little bit to get across the finish line, but we were able to get that done. Parental leave for state employees. We were one of the only states that didn't do that. So, you know, we claim that we are the safest place in Mississippi, and here in Mississippi, we're the safest place in the nation for an unborn child, and we want to foster that and families and all of that. This was one more thing to say. We're pro-life in so many other ways. So we were proud to get that across the finish line. We've got a certificate of need reform bill that's on the governor's desk now. We hope he's going to sign that, and those would be major pieces to our legislative session that we would consider incredibly successful. We were disappointed our education pieces didn't get across the finish line. I think that's where we'll turn our attention this summer and into the fall. I think that's probably too complicated to get into a special session. The Senate's not there. All of our bills died down there without even a committee vote. So we're going to continue to kind of push the envelope on the education freedom issue. It aligns perfectly with President Trump's administration and the direction they want to take public education.
And you were there in 2013, weren't you, when the last bill passed?
I was there. I heard about how fast and hard the sky was falling. And it's from folks that are still around pushing that status quo education stuff. So, you know, if you saw yesterday, the vice president tweeted and posted some stuff about our numbers here in Mississippi. It was pretty cool to see that acknowledgement, even from the White House. And a lot of folks, retweeted it and commented and talked about it and all that sort of thing. But it reminded us all, and we talked about it in a couple of different group texts, man, how bad of people we were when we passed those bills. You remember, you were around
absolutely.
when all that happened.
I remember the parents' campaign talking about how it would harm children. I had the state super. I ran that operation for Governor Bryant, and I remember sitting down with the state superintendent of education who said, "This is an agenda that'll harm children."
It'll harm children, and instead, it's gone the exact other way.
Exactly.
So we're going to continue to push that going forward and see where we get. We think it is time for real conversations about what is best for kids and parents who, by the way, happen to be taxpayers.
That's right.
That are paying the bill. So this is not about a knock on public schools. I think in most situations, public school is probably most people's number one choice. That's not
and it has
the
been
issue.
every other state that's done something like that.
And we put our money where our mouth was over the last several years in the form of real teacher pay raise that got us off the bottom, a couple of them almost back to back that got us up to a better place, ranking nationally among our peers, as well as our funding formula. We're in a real place where we didn't have a fight this year about the funding formula.
Is that ever going to come? I mean, is that fully fully funded forever?
It is.
I mean, I recognize it has to be appropriated.
It has to be appropriated, but we didn't. There was no fight about the funding formula this year. We funded it even from the very first meetings of JLBC, and everybody seemed to be happy with it. We're happy with the transparency and predictability it brings for us.
We're coming up against this break. You got any final thoughts here? We've got about 30 seconds.
no final thoughts. I'm proud of my House members who were able to make House Bill 1 a priority to build up Mississippi and set the stage for Mississippi's next big move on not only a southeastern but a national average. We're excited about the future in Mississippi. The momentum is real, regardless of what you might hear out of other camps.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to be here, Speaker. Thanks for all y'all got done.
Thank you, Lucien. Good to be here.
Y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross. Stick with us for more coming up next.
Now I know I can, and I'm leaving here a better man. Yes, I'm leaving here a better man.
From the Venable Glass.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
You were the first thing that I thought of when I thought I drank you off my mind. When I get lost in the liquor.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Good conversation with the speaker there, and we'll talk more about choice and whatnot probably in the 8 o'clock hour. But I'm glad to hear that's going to be a real focus of the houses now that the House and Senate have eliminated the income tax. Well, MDOT, Mississippi Department of Transportation, sent out a tweet yesterday. Have you been getting, Lance, these toll notice things? It's a phishing scam that's apparently been affecting people all over the country, where you get these texts that say, well, I can tell you because I got one yesterday. Toll violation notice. This is your final notice regarding the unpaid toll balance. And it gives a link that looks a little bit like a real link, but is not. And I don't know if it puts a virus on your computer or if you put your credit card number in. But departments of transportation all across the country have been putting out notices to let people know this is not real. You don't owe a toll. You don't have some fee somewhere. It's just it's a scam.
Well, I'll give folks some helpful advice here. If you fall prey to those things, remember, no government sends you a text message or connects with you through Facebook or any of that. I mean, you're going to get a certified letter if you owe anybody anything. In other words, if you have an address, they're going to send you something.
Right.
Yeah, you're not getting a text from a government entity.
Well, also, and I'm sure it's working because this is...
people rake it in.
It's happening all over the country. But the two things that ought to tell you that this is fake if you live in Mississippi, one, at least the text I got is from a foreign country. Yeah. So you're correct. Government is not going to send you a text message asking for you to pay them. They're also not going to send you that text message from Malaysia, probably. I would assume... that Mississippi Department of Transportation does not use Malaysian contractors to collect tolls. But the other reason, to my knowledge, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that Mississippi has any toll road here.
I don't know of any. I guess if there is one, I haven't been on it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're legal. I don't know if, but I've run the roads in Mississippi for a long time, and I've never come across a toll road.
Well, I read or heard something the other day that was it in Florida or where they'd paid off one of the toll roads. I never heard of that happening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard
actually paid enough to pay off the thing, and now you can.
Oh, so now there are no tolls.
Free. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. Well, they've I can see how these scams work in the Northeast, or if you're driving everywhere from D.C. to New Jersey or something, which we do a fair amount because my wife's family is up there. You're hitting it. There's no way to get from here to there without going past the toll. I'm sure there are people who figured out some back roads way to do it, but you've got to do it. So everybody's got these, easy pass devices you stick up by your rearview mirror that pay the toll automatically. Mm-hmm. And so that's who this is targeting. They just
when I lived in D.C. a couple of times, there was toll roads. I enjoyed them because there was nobody on them.
Yeah.
You just go in there and I didn't have a lot of money, but if you needed to get somewhere quick and you knew it was toll versus traffic, I'm taking the toll road.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Time is money.
And some of those are expensive.
They are. Now, I didn't have to do it every day, But, yeah, if it was once every blue moon, I had to jump on a toll road up there. It didn't bother me one bit to spend a few bucks.
If you're running late.
Because I hate traffic. It's like, one of the things that I really enjoy about living in Mississippi, that you don't have to deal with what we would really consider gridlock. We don't have that around here. Even when the stack's backed up and everything is slow, it's nothing like what you see on the Beltway in D.C.
That's the truth.
That place was crazy, man. I mean, goodness.
Well, folks will complain about, living here as opposed to living in an Atlanta or a D.C. or something like that.
Incomparable.
A 30-minute commute here, I know we got some people who drive incredibly long distances rurally, but 30 minutes of bumper-to-bumper traffic in Mississippi only happens in a handful of places, and it's fairly rare.
Well, I have a friend in the building here that he lives out in Pelahatchie, and it takes him about 30 minutes to get here, and that's when most people are driving. So and that's a pretty good haul,
right?
If you think about it in mileage, is by the way the crow flies and all, or even the roads, it's still a chunk of real estate you got to cover to get from Pelahatchie to here.
That's right.
You go do that around Birmingham. Good luck.
Oh yeah.
I mean that sincerely. You're not going to live that far out and it take 30 minutes.
You're driving
bigger
an
commitment.
hour, 2 hours. I mean, so it's crazy the commutes people have to do in other parts.
And
of the
I can
country.
understand why the self-driving car fad, because who wants to sit there and hit the brake and hit the gas and hit the brake and hit the gas? No, that's the worst, the worst feeling ever.
My goal, I've got an almost 20-year-old F-150, and my hope is that I can keep driving it until self-driving trucks exist and are reasonably affordable. So,
I'm in 2013 FJ Cruiser, so I'm like you. I'm just going to hold on as long as I can.
Because there have been plenty of drives where I thought, if I could sit in the back and work or read or something like that.
Put my feet out the window, just hang out,
Well, y'all stick with us. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. As we end the 7 o'clock hour, we've got Fox News followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News coming up next.
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
We chased Lady Luck till we finally struck Bonanza. With a gun and a rope and a hat full of hope, we planted our family tree. We got a hold of a pot full of gold Bonanza. With a horse and a saddle and a ring full of cattle.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Entering the third hour here on Wednesday, April 9th. We were supposed to have, a little programming note here, William Russell, former advisor and state director for Mississippi for the Trump campaign, and a principal now with Magnolia Management Group, on to talk a little bit about the first several months of the Trump campaign. But he has been afflicted, it sounds like, with group. So
principal
he will not
sounds
be with
good.
us. It's a good title.
When you're given the name principal.
It's a head honcho, right? Sort of fancy title for
big
it.
Dog. Well, we had such a great discussion regarding the education funding formula, with Speaker White, and at least
there were some questions
in there. And clarification, anything pre-K-5 is not going to be covered under either the previous MAEP formula or the MSF formula, from what we can tell. Speaker White said that K-5 is, but there's lots of community programs that step in, permanent funding type of models in those communities that take care and make a big difference in the pre-K-5 population. Now, some of the key differences in the MAEP formula and the MSFF formula, you change from average daily attendance to average net enrollment. So that was one of the key provisions there. Students-based weighting for A&E additions, local contributions amount calculated on the total funding. All grade levels are included. Okay, so that's an addition there. And you have non-recalculation year. So that's called the base student cost increased by 25%. And you can see it gets very complicated.
It does.
So there's all kind of moving parts in there.
But it's incredible that they got it done.
That was kind of where I'm going with that. It's like, this is incredible to me that they were able to change and readjust where the funding should go and how it should go.
Yeah.
To me, it seems a better formula in the long run. So,
well, you
but
go
complicated,
back to,
man.
And MAP was incredibly complicated.
Exactly. Go through that one.
And I don't doubt that it was well intentioned in the 90s when the legislature adopted it, but it was only ever fully funded twice. Mm-hmm. And what it turned into over time was basically just a political weapon.
Yeah.
It was a way for the Democrats to come back every year once the Republicans were in charge, even though they also were not able to fully fund it, and say, well, look at the Republicans, they won't fully fund education. And the formula increased every year, as I appreciated, automatically. So if it were $10 million short one year, you were going to start $10 million short the next year, plus there'd be an increase, and it allowed these Democratic political action committees masquerading as pro-children groups to go out and say, look at the Republicans, they just don't hate children. They hate children. They don't want to help them learn. And so I think that's a good change, and the legislature deserves a lot of credit for coming up with a new system for it.
Definitely. And again, there's so many pieces. You go through it, all the triggers that, the percentage levels in the trigger, like sparsity and, concentrated poverty and career and technical education, and how all those percentages work out. Very interesting. And how you get to the per student costs.
Yeah.
And there was also a provision in the hold harmless provision that MAEP included in there that basically if you weren't performing or your attendance wasn't up to snuff, you weren't going to get less funding the next year. Well, the MFSS, it changes that, where you have a certain time before there is a decrease in funding if you are not meeting your obligations. So
right.
Again, rewarding those that have performance over those that potentially do not. It seems like a merit-based mindset, which I'm all for. I like, reward those that do things the right way. And
that's right.
If you're not, let's disincentivize the poor behavior. And not just keep throwing money at something that doesn't seem to be working.
Well, and I was really glad to hear the speaker say that next year the focus is likely to be on choice, because that's the next frontier, right? I mean, I was Governor Bryant's policy director, deputy chief of staff, when we put together the 2013 package that got through there, and it met the same kind of hostility that Choice had. You had all these establishment types who were saying, this is going to be bad for children, you shouldn't do this, it's bad policy. And I think that the question is, do you want to fund students or do you want to fund systems? Is your objective to make sure that the capital budget for fill-in-the-blank school district is as large as it can be, or do you want to make sure that the achievement of the students who graduate from there is as high as it can be? Because that is, to my mind, that's the point of an educational system, is to educate children so when they graduate from high school, they are able to go on to the next stage of their life as productive citizens, whether that's 4-year college, directly into the job market, somewhere in between. And that's the question, not whether you got to wait an extra year to buy new vehicles, not whether you're able to build a new facility. Now, if those matter, that is important. But the thing that matters most is whether you're funding students or whether you're funding systems. And we are surrounded by states that are moving in the direction of greater choice. Alabama's doing it. Tennessee's doing it. Arkansas is doing it. Louisiana's working towards it. This isn't one of those deals. 40 years ago, I understand why there was hesitation on this, because it was relatively new as a major Republican policy proposal. But now this has been done everywhere.
Well, you also were in the embryonic phase of the Department of Education at the federal level. That hadn't been around forever. Remember, that's in the history of this country, it's a fairly new agency, and the goals that are stated for our Board of Education are all students proficient and showing growth in all assessed areas.
Right.
And then you got every student graduates from high school and is ready for a college or a career. Now, these are mind-blowing things, but one thing I would like to see is what is the model to hold accountable those goals. We can always throw out goals,
right?
But we need to hold accountable our growth and our goals, and be able to look at these things. Yeah, we're meeting these things. We're exceeding these things. And I think, like you've got to continue educating. You've got to continue finding the right fit for children who are getting out of high school that may need to go to college. That might be the track they want to go. You got others over here that may say, hey, this is the best path for me.
Right.
I need to get out and start making some money. And there has to be long-term security in that, where people can plan and look to the future and have hope. That hope is the greatest liberator, but you've got to back it up with something real. It can't just be a carrot dangled out in front of you, because eventually the donkey gets a little mad and starts bucking.
Well, we've got somebody on the C Spire text line, and if you want to be part of the conversation, you can send us a text at 601-879-4395, who says, I don't understand why we're talking about this. Most people aren't talking about school choice, and the infrastructure is not in place. And I'd say the reason we're talking about it is because the data shows from many states that have done this that school choice improves educational outcomes both for children who are in traditional public schools and those who avail themselves of choice. The data makes that very, very clear. The people in Mississippi are not that different from our surrounding states. The infrastructure is not that different from our surrounding states, and the data shows that it's improving. And at the end of the day, it's called leadership. Yeah. The fact of the matter is people know this will improve student outcomes, and they're not just saying, I'm for this because a lot of people have told me they're for this. They're saying, I'm for this because my job as a senator, a representative, the governor, whatever position, is to do what I can to improve the lives of the people who live in my community. And I believe, based on the data, that school choice is one of the things that will do that, and so I'm working for it. So that's the reason people are talking about it.
Well, and then you have two opinions a little bit. When we look at things objectively, the House, they're more in the public and open type of school choice.
Yeah.
Where the Senate side, and led by our Lieutenant Governor, has been very clear that the public-to-public option is much more palatable for them. So this is a discussion, whether some want it to happen or not, that is happening with our legislative members. It is going to continue. And like Lucien said, it's not going to happen this session most likely, but knowing what's coming and that it is an agenda item, I think is very important. It gives people an opportunity to look at things in different capacities instead of just as it always has been. What are other options? What have been successful options in other states? And can we, or will we implement these things if, in the event, the infrastructure, as you said, is there and ready to go?
And it's going to, you make a good point, Lance. They're complicated questions on exactly how you implement this. There are all these boogeymen that have been put out there that, districts are just going to cherry pick certain students.
Or for sports or whatever
for sports, or that it's going to be used as a way to resegregate schools. And I don't think there's any risk of any of those things, but I think there are complicated policy questions that will have to get answered and have to get hashed out. But we're going to get left behind if we don't do something. And it's like, you and I have talked about this before too. It's no different than your finances or your physical health or so many other areas. If you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. So if you think Mississippi's education system is 100% perfect in terms of outcomes, you don't want to have you don't think there's any need for any change, any improvement, then let's not change anything.
Well, and it's like the person standing at the top of a cliff rolling a ladder while you're climbing it, but you never really make any distance. You never really catch up because you're just constantly keeping your feet moving and nothing's accomplished. And that's somewhat where we kind of have been, is we need to see progress.
That's right. That's right. And I think there's a huge opportunity here, and I hope we're able to get there next session. Y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us for more after this.
Side of the mountain where the sun don't ever shine.
From the Venable.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When we were young, the future was so bright. The yellow neighborhood was so alive. Every kid on the home street was gonna make it big.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We were talking about it in the 6 o'clock hour, and then we started doing some more serious work, but about the Champions Dinner at the Masters, and I got off making this point. But for those of you who are not familiar or didn't catch us then, there's a tradition that the previous year's champion at the Masters Golf Tournament puts together a menu, and all previous champions, as well as I don't know how many members of Augusta National, come to this dinner where they eat it, and every year the menu's made public. But people pick these menus that are sort of reflective of their story or where they're from. So John Rahm, who was he was a Spanish golfer, put together a menu that was very reflective of Spanish cuisine. He had a Spanish chef help put him together. When Jordan Spieth won, it was heavy on barbecue. When Hideki Matsuyama had his, there was sushi as the appetizers. He's a Japanese golfer. And then Wagyu beef was the main thing. So I'd be curious to know, and you can tell us at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. If you had won, what would be your Mississippi flavored Champions Dinner? Because I'm thinking, some fried oysters, some soft shell crabs, got to have some catfish. Something like that would have to play a pretty major role on it. Somehow, I think pimento cheese needs to be part of that picture.
I'm going with lots of fried stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, fried pimento cheese balls, fried catfish, fried chicken. I
hadn't thought about fried chicken.
Oh yeah,
that's a good
fried
idea.
chicken's my baseline for about every decision I make in life. Is if it doesn't have fried chicken and it's good, I'm probably not living in that area. I'll take a pay cut if I have to.
That's a good point.
You got to have standards in life, and great fried chicken
is one of them.
Yes, it has to be. And I would go with some kind of Tex-Mex too, just to throw them off a little spice. But no, blackened catfish is always good. But the redfish out of the Gulf, so you'd have to go with that.
Have
that
to go
or
with
snapper.
Some Gulf seafood. I agree with you.
I would go region, north, central, south. And then maybe throw the Delta in there as the grand equalizer.
I really like that. Some tamales, maybe.
Yes, definitely.
We got deviled eggs. Been suggesting gumbo
I'll
here.
eat my weight in deviled eggs. My mama used to make the best ones, and she would make a whole extra tray just so I could have plenty of deviled eggs.
And nowadays, people recognize deviled eggs pretty good for you.
Oh man!
I mean, when we were kids, people thought of deviled eggs as being kind of something that was an indulgence that might not be good for your cholesterol.
Love them, man. I mean, goodness gracious. If they're bad for you, I'm just going to have to live with it. But Little Willie's around here does a great deviled egg. If you're ever
I've never had that
in the neighborhood in need of fix, they have a little 4-pack or 5-pack, whatever it is. It's ready to go every day, wrapped up. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've swung through there and said, all right, just give me the eggs.
Well, we got a couple people here suggesting some type of shrimp cocktail, boiled shrimp. Black-eyed peas are good. I knew if we asked the text line, there'd be some people who had some real creative ideas.
Black-eyed peas are the ones I just can't ever get behind the black-eyed pea. It's too chalky tasting. I love good old country green beans, and squash, and all that, but the pea world is not my, it's just not my bag.
I probably eat black-eyed peas on purpose once a day. Once a year on January 1st.
That's when I do it, yeah. And my mama, she made a pepper relish that was like a jelly, and it was made for people like me that don't like black-eyed peas, and you would just take a blob of that and throw it in there, and it was spicy, and it would, heat it up and make it not so bland, I guess. I mean, she cooked everything with about 4 pigs in it. So,
I was going to say, you got to have some fat in there.
Oh yeah. I would pick the fat out of the chunks of the meat out of the vegetables as a kid. I love that.
We got a deer meat. That's a very good point. Some venison in there.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
My question to you that eat deer meat like I do: what is your favorite way to consume it? Not necessarily all the things you do to cook it, but is it the backstrap? Is it made into sausage? Do you like it ground up, mixed with bacon and other things for your burger or your chilies?
I like the tenderized steaks pretty well.
You like the backstrap tenderized steaks. Yeah. As a kid, I loved when we would take the backstrap and where we hunted, we had a kitchen and folks would come live in the kitchen for the holidays and they would cook and we would bring in deer and they would cut it up and we'd have the best thing was the breakfast So you'd have the tenderloin slices that were fried like fingers, little steak fingers. And you would get the biscuits, and I'd grab a handful of those and run back over to the cabin, get back in the bed. But you always had the grits and eggs, and I mean, just like a buffet line for all of us. And it was a pretty big camp, and it was always fun. I guess I'm still nostalgic about having the deer steak, like but I love them in the little steak fingers fried. Absolutely.
Fried. I like them fried too.
Fried steak fingers that are the deer steak. Oh man.
But I remember, because I grew up only eating the steak fried. I forget. It's been in the last 10 years. A good friend of mine said, they're actually great if you just season them and cook them on a grill like another piece. I mean, they're dry out. You can't cook it like a ribeye. But
I'll eat deer meat any which way that it's cooked, and I love it in the sausage format.
I'm not mad at the sausage.
My favorite is the cheddar and jalapeno mix. Cook it and I like it good and crispy. Some people like it a little bit less done. I love mine with almost a blackened edge to it, and the cheese is shooting out, and you got to have wear protective glasses basically to twist it around on the grill. I love it when it gets that little edge to it. But I love deer meat. I mean, I grew up with it, and you can't really. My dad was grandparents. Everybody hunted, so it was just natural.
Yeah, my kids eat a bunch of it, and they're very picky eaters, but don't complain about it.
Yeah, my sister was never the biggest deer meat eater growing up. We always had. It was just so common, I guess. If you had a choice, and there was a sausage patty versus the link of deer meat, she'd probably migrate to that. But these days, it changes as you get a little older, and you realize, this stuff's pretty good here.
Well, and you realize it's not, it's good, and it's because there's some. I feel like there are a lot of preparations, and I like them. Where you stuff it full of cheese, or you make a jalapeno popper or something like that. But I think it's good just on its own.
That thing to me was like duck. Now I much prefer it with a piece of bacon wrapped around and having jalapeno on it, and then grill it. It's much easier to eat when you say put it in the oven and bake it in some juices. It's softer, but just something about having a cooked bird, whether it's dove or duck, wrapped with a little piece of bacon, and you got the little jalapeno. It's like a little popper.
Well, and I think you need that for dove for sure, and for most of the duck too. I'm much happier eating deer meat just a tenderized steak that's been cooked quickly, as opposed to just a piece of, say, dove. I think it kind of helps with.
Did you ever dove hunt as a kid? We had a great family south of us here in the Delo, Johns area, and they had an annual dove hunt and a huge party every year. And that was, as a kid, one of my favorite things, going out there and everybody surrounding in the field, and then all the doves start flying, and you get to start shooting the doves. And then there's a dude back here with a grill in the woods, get
knocking
30 yards back in there. And as you brought them in, somebody would clean them, and he would cook them. And it was just an all-day affair, and you'd just sit there and eat so much.
One of my father's best friends, who grew up in Smith County, would invite us down to their big Labor Day hunt when I was a kid.
Yeah, not far from Smith County.
Yeah.
Great watermelons down there.
No doubt about it. No doubt about that.
Doesn't like them.
We got people are busting out packs of deer meat after all our conversations about it, but Nathan on the C Spire text line really hooked us up with that topic. Keep them coming. We'll keep. I
was trying to find some of the previous meals that had been served, but they keep deferring to Scotty Scheffler with the firecracker shrimp, the tortilla soup, choice of Texas ribeye steak, black and red fish, Scotty style cheeseburger sliders. And then a skillet cookie.
Yeah.
That was the one.
I think that was his first one.
That was the first one. Then John Rahm. Yeah, you had. But I can't find any others that they had really.
So Spieth had authentic Texas barbecue.
You've got better stuff than I do.
Brisket, smoked half chicken, pork ribs, baked beans. Hideki Matsuyama was assorted sushi, sashimi, and nigiri for appetizers. Miso glazed cod. Wagyu beef ribeye.
Yeah, I mean, don't those Wagyu beef cows, don't they live in like fancy hotels? And
I think, and they like drink beer and get massage. I mean, I think they literally feed them beer
they do
to keep them all nice and fatty.
It's a great cut of meat, man. I'm gonna tell you, it's delicious, soft. I'll give it that. It is soft.
They're proud of it.
Yeah,
too.
It's like a little softy. He's never done anything in its life, and then it's so much fat in the meat, which is unique.
Well, if you go to a restaurant and they tell you what the price is by the ounce, you don't need to order.
Or when it says your market price.
I have this clear memory of going to a restaurant. I think my father was on a business trip, and we went to a restaurant. And I'd never been to a place like that before. And I looked over and said, Dad, what does MP stand for? And he said, it stands for market price. And I said, well, what does market price mean? He said, it means it's too expensive for you to order. And I forgot, it probably was 10 years later before I realized market price didn't literally mean it's too expensive for you to order.
You thought that was the actual definition.
I thought that's what it meant, but he was also correct. Y'all, this is Lucien Smith here with Lance Talbert in for Richard on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us for more after this.
And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground. And I won't back down.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Maria, there was some blue and sorrow time. Just my thoughts about you.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. It's interesting. And we've talked about this last couple of days. I think people are maybe tired of hearing about tariffs. I know they're certainly tired of seeing their 401k become a 201k. But there does seem to be this real split that's starting to spill over publicly between, as I appreciate it, the Peter Navarro people. And Navarro is he was a Trump advisor in the first term. And as I understand it, is the architect of the current tariff policy. And those folks seem to think that the idea of the tariffs are for permanent protectionism, that the idea is to reshore a lot of manufacturing and go back to a lot of the things that might be manufactured now in different parts of the world that we import. Let's start making toasters and tennis shoes again in the U.S., and that we're going to just fundamentally change the American economy. And another set, and Elon Musk is probably the greatest example of this, although I think some of the cabinet level folks have also talked about it, that these are a negotiating tactic and that it's going to be used as a way of ultimately having freer and fairer trade, and that's going to make everybody wealthier. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I mean, Navarro and Musk are it's getting public and nasty. I mean, Musk called Navarro dumb as he said he wouldn't call him dumber. He said he dumber than a sack of bricks. And then doubled down and saying he wanted to apologize to Bricks for suggesting that Peter Navarro and Bricks were as smart as each other. So that's pretty strong stuff for two people who work on the same team.
It is getting heated.
But it's interesting. I mean, it should be a source of concern that you've got principled conservatives who are raising concerns about tariffs. I mean, they're not doing it just because they're never Trumpers. They're doing it because tariffs are a tax, and they've historically been an inefficient way to do policy. But I enjoyed hearing from Senator Hyde-Smith in that first 7 o'clock block that it sounds like her view, and I know she's somebody who talks regularly to the president, is that this is a way of getting freer, fairer trade, that America's got a bunch of bad deals, and that this is going to allow us to renegotiate them and allow us to export more American material around the world and have it be done under fairer terms. And that will ultimately, I think, be good for the United States. I don't think some idea that we're going to return to what was called mercantilism, where you attempted to protect your domestic industries rather than doing what you had a competitive advantage at doing as the primary economic model. That I do not think will lead to the long-term prosperity of the country. But there are clearly a couple schools of thought in and around the president pushing for different ideas.
I know it looks really bad on the 401k, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not. I will say, though, that you're really only 3% down from where you were at this point last year.
Right. Well, I mean, look, unless if you're a trader, I mean, if you're literally sitting there every day saying, I'm going to buy this stock today, sell it tomorrow, that's different. But I mean, if you're an investor if you owned 1,000 shares of stock yesterday or a year ago, you still own 1,000 shares of stock, and
you got to bet on
a 10, 20-year horizon.
And you're betting on this country. You're betting on –
that's right.
Do you have people in power that are making good decisions for the long term? And knowing and in believing that you obviously understand there's going to be some short-term issues.
Right.
The other side, I firmly believe, is that these are not long-term tariff mindset type of, threats. In other words, or I just don't see that.
Right.
I don't. I don't think many economists or anyone that is advising him would say these are long-term solutions. Will this bring people to the table to negotiate? I believe it has. It's shown that it's worked with some.
They're saying over 72 countries are looking to renegotiate.
Well, and you've got 50 plus that have said, hey, we'd rather just do free trade with you. And so I think what you really would like to see out of this is a compelling block of countries that have items that they can make, things that are valuable to the world, and that we get back to doing the same. And that in that 50, 60, 100 countries, whatever it may be, end up, that you have a free trade zone, a free trade block.
That's right.
That is where you really want to go with that. And it allows more choice of who and what you want to buy. If there are no tariffs that you really have to worry about. Now, you may not be getting certain things from China as cheap as you were at one point.
Right.
But is there an alternative somewhere else? I listened to an article while I was coming to work this morning about the amount of exports that other countries depend upon. And that, a mere 10, 15 years ago, America was obviously the great leader in a short period of time ago. And what other countries bought on the open market, so to speak, were mostly from America. And in a mere 15 years, roughly, that is completely flipped over to where China is the largest exporter of goods to pretty much the world. So you got to look at those things and ask yourself, how did that happen? And we're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and I don't think anybody's trying to do that. What they are trying to do is fair it up a bit, where there are options other than China.
That's right, and I think you're correct that that's where the president's trying to go. I do think there's some people around him who think, we're going to start manufacturing lots of things we bring in from other countries here in the U.S. And at the end of the day, and there are exceptions to this, are there people in the U.S. who can assemble the $20 toaster that you buy at Walmart right now? Absolutely. But it's suddenly going to become a $300 toaster.
Well, that and the other side is we're not going to have manual labor like that today, which we see in 10 years.
Right.
It's just not going to be there. So why would you invest in that? If you're going to bring manufacturing back, you're going to have to bring it back in a way that is adapted to the conditions in which the markets are adjusting today and the demands that are going to be there tomorrow. So if you're building toasters with a bunch of people gluing them together and screwing them together, you're going to price yourself out of the real market that's coming.
That's right.
This is an older economy that we're looking at. As AI and other things and robotics shift to a more automated workforce, what are you going to do with all these folks that you go, okay, well, let's start putting toasters together?
Yeah,
they're not going to have jobs. So you have to, and I'm going to go on a soapbox a little bit because you continue hearing about how terrible Mississippi is with workforce development. I have the statistics. I've made this known. I've shared it with many leaders. There is a workforce development problem in very limited areas in this state. Not across the state, not across 82 counties, but there are limited areas where there's terrible development of our workforce. Now, I would love to see the education and the way we go about this to hold those areas more accountable, where if you're going to be a bigger drain on the system, then let's put resources into those areas and hold those areas accountable to develop that workforce. Because there's so many people that get up and go to work every day. I keep hearing it. Mississippi has a workforce development problem. Not really. It does in certain areas. Most people get up and go to work. And they work hard. Maybe they don't make as much money as they would like. And that's where, hopefully longevity, experience, getting more knowledge, a certificate, whatever could help you earn more money. But the reality is we as a state work very hard. If you compare our GDP to countries, Hungary, people like that, we put out as much GDP as a country like Hungary puts out, more than Ukraine. That's a little state of 3 million people here.
You can even go west. I mean, people love to talk about how poor Mississippi is. There's no doubt we have a poverty problem. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that we don't. But we've got the per capita income of Germany. Mm-hmm. We're above the per capita income of France.
That's where I'm going with this. Why do we suffer here if America is so wealthy and we have all this extra money to get screwed in the ground on trade. Why are people here poor when you look at the same issues in Germany? And I can assure you're not finding the same level of poverty there. Why is our wealth being mortgaged out to whomever and sent out all over the world? I'm a big fan of that. America should be the wealthiest. We're the leader of the world. We've innovated more and done more for the world than I think anybody's done for
no
us
doubt about
ever.
it.
I mean, that's not even debatable.
We've spent 70 years essentially being the reason for peace in Europe. Now,
Exactly.
obviously, there hasn't been perfect peace in the central and eastern part. There's a major war going on right now.
It's never been peaceful in Europe for this amount of time. Do your historical research. It is a crazy place of people that have hated each other over this fiefdom or this king or that king for years. And, I mean, thousands. This has gone on for a couple of – so to see the stability that has, because of World War II and the result of America being the force, Europe has been stable. It's been forced to be stable. But it hadn't invested in its own military. It hasn't invested in its own protection. It's dependent on America to do that.
That's
for
right.
And again, how much of that, if it were in our pockets, would be something that we could say, well, that's our wealth now, not the wealth of other countries.
That's right. And that, I mean, remember back after Trump's election in 2016, how much anger there was at the suggestion that Europe should pay more.
Oh, Lord.
They've got a commitment under the NATO agreement to put a certain percentage of GDP towards defense spending, and virtually none. I'm not going to say none. Somebody I'm sure will be happy to correct me if I say none on the C Spire text line, but virtually none of them were actually meeting their obligations.
That's right.
But the Europeans, and then the media over here amplified it. The Europeans were deeply critical of him destroying these norms of cooperation between Europe and the U.S., and it was because he knew that it was not, we were doing our part, but they in turn were not actually doing what they had committed to do as part of it, and that's why they were mad at it. Y'all, this is Lucien Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us for final thoughts coming up right after this.
I wonder this time where she's gone. I wonder if she's gonna stay. There ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away.
From the Venable Glass.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us as we enter our final segment on the quickest 3 hours in radio. I tell you, the C Spire text line where you can be part of the conversation at 601-879-4395 really is just a constant resource. I'm sorry to all the folks who have written in these great Mississippi Masters dinner
you got to have
menus.
fried crappie on there.
Oh, I like that idea. But somebody here says they actually did one of these once and had, like you suggested, which is a great idea, regional dishes from around the state. So a Gulf area with some various shrimp tartare and some stuff from the Pine Belt.
And I'm all about some fried oysters, some char-grilled oysters.
Completely. You saw that one, the Louisiana, Mississippi menu somebody put together.
Love those. I would say one thing on the stock market as we're going to close out here. I want you guys to realize something. Whenever there's wild swings in price and there's gaps in trading, meaning let's say it closed at 37,000 yesterday and then you miss about 1,000 points of price and it opens at 35,000 and it keeps going down. At some point, those prices that it missed are going to be covered. I don't know if that's going to be a day, a month, or a year, but you're not going to have gaps. Every price has to be accounted for in there. And number two, look at volume. The volume's at 3 or 4 million on the Dow, let's say on average, maybe 5 million. And the biggest sell-offs, you had 7, 8 million shares trading place. So, you and I as retail investors have very little impact at all
That's
on
a
the
great
market.
point.
These are institutions, big funds, big Titanics, so to speak, that if they make a little move, it can affect the market immensely. And when a few of them make big moves, it can affect the market even bigger.
That's a really good point.
Patience is a virtue.
Well, we've talked about this before, and obviously neither of us are rendering financial advice.
No.
For the vast majority of people, what you need to have is a broad-based, whether it's an index fund or a portfolio you put together yourself, that has high-quality businesses, and then you kind of forget about it. The people who get ultra wealthy on being in the stock market are either – you have a handful of people who just get crazy lucky. The guy who made all the money off of GameStop a couple of years ago. Yeah. But that is sheer luck. That's panhandling for gold.
A lot of it is computer driven these days.
Yeah.
A lot of your sell-offs are triggered in these big firms and big entities, and it sees something, and it sees volume, or it sees something that it doesn't like, and it's going to hit the sell button automatically. Right. And it'll say auto-magically happens. And if that happens at one entity, guess what? Right. About 10 or 15 or 20 others are probably their same computer system that they're running the same thing is going, yep, we saw that too. And so it's a game theory model, basically. That's what you're looking at.
That's right.
Where do we think things are going tomorrow? And look, I think Donald Trump's doing a great job. Do I believe he's right on everything? No. But that's not human nature to agree with everything everyone says all the time.
That's right. We've had exactly one perfect human who's ever walked the earth.
Exactly.
And he is not in the White House, nor will he ever be.
And let's hope he doesn't come back anytime soon, because then we're all gone. But I'm all for, supporting our Lord and Savior. But, I don't want to see him tomorrow. I want to see this country continue to grow and continue to be successful, continue to get itself on the right footing, and people here where we don't have poverty and we don't have hunger and we don't have these things. Does that sound ideal and pie in the sky? Yes. But the wealth this country possesses, that is definitely possible as we continue to hopefully close gaps.
That's right.
In those things. But, you got to have the appetite, right, to do these things. And that means Americans have to have the appetite to fix problems, and sometimes it's going to hurt a little bit.
And if we end up with freer, fairer trade, I think that will ultimately have made this worth it. If we end up with more protectionism, that's going to be a problem. But you've said this before, and you're right, Lance. The market hates uncertainty, and right now there's a lot of uncertainty.
But you also see a lot of businesses, as Trump has announced, multi-hundred-billion-dollar deals that are coming in, and he's a deal maker, and those things take a little time to see shifting of assets and people investing in economies. And it's like oil. You don't dig it out of the ground and that's the price.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that.
There's
a lot that goes into getting that thing to where you can put it in your car. And prices change over time. And you get too much oil, prices go down. You get too much, too little oil, prices are going to go up. Supply and demand. And that's where we are right now. There's a lot of people going, let's just set back a minute. So the supply is a little low. The demand or the supply is higher, demand is a little lower. Those things can change overnight.
And I don't think this is going to go on. I mean, I think you've already seen a bunch of these countries who want to renegotiate. I also think the president is going to want to come to some final resolutions on these agreements because, this is an uncomfortable time for a lot of people. And let me be clear, for people who are, closer to retirement, this is not sort of not just a little bit of discomfort. I mean, this is massive. So I think there's going to be real eagerness to get some sort of final resolution. And I think when it happens, you're going to see the markets just explode. That's my guess.
I think they could go out of sight quickly if things get resolved in the way we hope they do.
Well, Lance, I've enjoyed it. It's been 3 days.
Lucien.
I know, my friend. I will look forward to being back. And thank you to everybody who's been with us the last 3 days. Let me be here helping you start your day. It's always a joy for me and an honor, and I appreciate you letting me do it. Y'all, this has been Lucien Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us for more great content. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.